Hello everyone, welcome to this wood carving tutorial. If you are interested in wood carving and want to learn this craft from start to finish, you are in the right place. My name is Saman and I'm a wood carving instructor based in the Seattle area. In this video, we're carving a simple fox. It's the first animal from my beginner 4 animal carving pack, and it's the easiest one to start with. If you have the pack, I recommend starting with this project. If not, you can download the pattern from the description and cut the blank yourself. You'll also find a link to purchase the full pack along with the tools and materials I'm using in the description below. We're using basswood for this project. It's a great choice for beginners. Before we start carving, I want to mention the knife I'm using. I use a Flexcut knife. This is not a sponsorship, but I recommend it for two reasons. First, the handle is very comfortable. Second, you can clearly see the bevel on the blade, which makes it easier to sharpen and polish the knife, especially if you are a beginner. Now for safety, make sure to wear a glove on your non-dominant hand and a thumb guard on your dominant hand for extra protection. Personally, I prefer using these self-adherent wraps instead of ready-made thumb guards because I can tighten them exactly as much as I want. Now let's get started. For 3D carving, you should always draw a center line to make sure the project stays symmetrical. To draw a straight line, rest your middle finger on the edge of the wood, hold the pencil horizontally, and slide it along the surface. Draw the center line all the way around the blank, including the bottom. I'm starting with the tail, just drawing the design here. You can make the tail a bit thicker and fluffier at this stage, and later you can always make it smaller. Now let me show you how to hold the knife. Hold it with 4 fingers like this and try not to grip it too tightly. Also, always hold the piece firmly with your thumb. This keeps the project stable, especially when you carve toward yourself, and makes the process much safer. If I carve the tail directly in this direction, I might accidentally cut into the body of the fox. So instead, I start by defining the edge of the tail. I draw a line where the tail begins and then make a stop cut along that line. To make a stop cut, hold your knife straight up and down and use the tip of the blade to make a shallow cut, about 1 to 2 millimeters deep. Don't go any deeper. Now I'm just focusing on the area about 1/4 of an inch from that line. As I carve, I hold my knife at a slight angle. The bevel stays close to the wood but not flat. You need a small angle for the knife to actually cut. Then I start carving from that area toward the stop cut, removing a thin layer of wood each time. We always carve layer by layer. If you make your stop cut too deep and try to remove thicker layers, you'll have to push harder and grip the knife too tightly, and your hand will get tired very quickly. To carve the other side of the tail, the head gets in the way, so it's not easy to carve toward my thumb. Instead, I push the knife forward. While you do this, make sure you're holding the piece firmly with your thumb. This side is a bit more difficult than the other one, but it's definitely not impossible. This is the only way to approach this area, and it's important to practice pushing the knife forward because in some parts this is the technique you'll need to use. In general, we always carve with the grain, but once we make a stop cut, we focus on the area close to that line. and carve toward the stop cut, even if it means going against the grain. Now, for the rest of the tail, we follow the grain direction. As you can see, the grain runs vertically when the blank cut this way. However, in some areas, it may run slightly upward or downward, and we'll discover that as we carve. Wood always tells us. To find out, start by carving a thin layer. If that cut looks clean and smooth, it means you're carving with the grain. Whenever the cut looks rough, your knife gets stuck in the wood, or a larger chip breaks off, it means you're carving against the grain. In that case, simply turn the wood and carve in the opposite direction. Now we can start rounding the edges of the fox's back, just a little bit for now, and remember to carve always with the grain. When you get close to the neck, be careful around the ears and make a stop cut along the ear lines so they don't chip off. Before we move on, I want to share a quick tip about keeping your knife sharp. I highly recommend stropping your knife every 30 minutes while carving. It only takes a couple of minutes and it really makes a difference. Let me show you how to do it. You'll need a piece of leather or a stropping tool like this and some polishing compound. The compound has fine abrasives that help clean up the edge and keep your knife sharp. Stropping helps remove tiny burrs and keeps the bevel nice and clean. First, apply the compound to the leather about the same length as your blade so the whole bevel can touch it. When you strop, make sure the entire bevel is touching the leather. Just lay the blade down like this and pull it backward about 15 to 20 times on each side. Then flip it over and do the same on the other side. That's it. Anytime your knife starts to feel a little dull, just apply a bit of fresh compound and strop it again. Now let's draw the head design. Since the grain runs upward, I hold the piece by the fox's nose and begin carving from the neck toward the nose. Try to keep your cuts straight and the surface flat. When I finish rounding the front, I move to the back. I start from the edge and work my way toward the center line. I place the knife on the edge and move it back and forth while carving, gradually bringing everything into the center line. This way, I make sure the entire back is fully rounded and smooth. Now it's time to separate the ears. To do that, I draw a small triangle between them. Start from one side and cut toward the center line. Then flip the knife and start from the other side toward the center line, creating a small V-shaped cut. When working on this area, use just the tip of your knife so you don't accidentally cut into the neck. Since I want to keep the outside of the ears flat with two sharp edges, I start rounding the edge from this area toward the nose. In 3D carving, we don't leave any area untouched. Everything should be carved, rounded, or smooth. Now I start rounding inside the ears, focusing on the edge of that V shape. Avoid turning the inside into a semicircle or U shape. Keep it as a V shape. Before I start working on the details like the legs and arms, it's better to sand this area first. I start with 150 grit sandpaper and then use 180. Higher numbers are finer. I can use 220 later. For now, 150 and 180 are enough. To make the sandpaper stronger, I fold a piece once or twice or wrap it around a pencil. Now I'm drawing the design for the legs and arms. Then I start making stop cuts along the center line, removing a small trench each time. I hold the knife at this angle and use just the tip, removing material from both sides to create a clean trench. Since the grain direction for this area is downward, so I turn the wood around and push the knife forward using my other thumb. Now repeat the same process on this area. Lower body slightly by carving it down so the arms and legs stay raised. Start with a stop cut, then gradually remove material. The project is finished. Once I'm happy with the shape, before I start sanding, I try to smooth the surface as much as I can with my knife, almost like peeling ginger. I remove very thin layers to refine the surface. Then I start sanding with 150 grit and work my way up to 220. There's an important point I want to mention. I often get asked how much sanding is enough. First, I spend my time on the lower grits, the coarse sandpaper. I focus more on those before moving up to finer grits. Also, sanding is really up to personal preference. Some people like to keep a bit of tool marks or texture, while others prefer a very smooth finish. So, in the end, it's completely up to you. The project is fully sanded and smooth, and I'm happy with the result. Now, before I apply any oil or finishing product, I wipe the dust off with a damp paper towel. I use mineral oil or any cutting board oil for my projects. I pour a little oil and spread it with my fingers. Since it's food safe, it's fine to use my hand. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. You're now ready to move on and start carving the second animal. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to help. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more tutorials. Bye.